Good morning to all my good people out there. This is Thomas Bain, and you're tuned in to Urban Ave Crypto. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. If you did subscribe before, or rather, if you have subscribed before, please check and make sure that you're subscribed still. YouTube is taking my subscribers away, and I'm trying to grow the channel. So on today's video, I'm going to be reviewing or making comments about a video that Maximus Crypto, I guess that's his name, and Will Fix did a couple of weeks ago. Could be a month ago. Now, rest in peace to Will Fix. He has passed on a couple of weeks ago. My condolences to his family. In no way, shape, or form am I, trying to take advantage of him when I'm going about making comments about this video. But he has said things in the video that is not totally correct, right? So I have the video clip here. We're going to be going through the video, and I'm going to be just making comments along the way. So I will be stopping the video at certain points to just comment on certain things that he is saying within the video. So let's get into the video.
Your thoughts.
All right, so first, let's deal with the market cap bros, okay? For those of you that are going to tell me about market cap and how it's impossible because there's not that much money, well, there doesn't need to be that much money. Now, I'm going to put the reference to a video that I did on market cap that does a full explanation of it right up here. Watch that. Don't make a comment about market cap unless you know what you're talking about. There is not a giant pile of money anywhere that is the market cap sum. It doesn't work that way. There doesn't need to be that much money. It's an estimated value. So look at that video. I put the link above my head there, or it'd be in the corner over here. Watch that so that you can get an understanding of that, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but when we don't know something, it's good to learn so that we can know something, right? And so Zach Rector also put together a great video about market cap. He also can be referenced to look at information on that. So, all right. So in my first video, I talked about.
Okay, so he's talking about market cap in the first set of seconds and minutes. Now, no, there may not be a large sum of money anywhere to affect the market cap. However, the market cap is reflecting some type of money somewhere, right? Now, the thing is, market cap has nothing to do with what the actual price of XRP is going to be. The market cap that we're seeing, I personally think, in my opinion, is really the market cap of Ripple itself, not really XRP. Because with the market cap of XRP being in the billions of dollars, XRP should be a higher price. I mean, that's just my opinion. When he talks about Zach Rector doing a video about market cap, I will tell you guys now, I would not even listen to Zach Rector. I would not. I used to listen to him myself personally, but I stopped listening to him because I started to realize that he was talking a lot of BS. He talks a lot of BS. He talks out of two sides of his mouth, which I don't really appreciate. But that's neither here or there. Let's get back to the video.
So Brad Garlinghouse has this brand new concept, this new thing, XRP with Ripple, and he needs to go around the world and sell this thing to people. right? Sell it to banks and institutions. Hey, we got this great way to transfer money. So some of the objectives and some of the concerns that are going to come up are, well, hey, you came to me and let's say I'm your first customer. Okay, well, if so nobody else has this, so I don't necessarily want to do it. Well, I'm going to build this up, Brad might say. And we're going to have where it's going to be all over because you're going to be able to do these transactions for pennies instead of dollars and seconds instead of days. And they say, okay, well, put me on the list. Okay. So how much money they're going to have to evaluate this company? How much do you send now? How much do you receive? Why do they need that? Because they're going to need a daily figure for that particular company on how much XRP is needed. Now he goes to hundreds of banks and institutions. Word gets out. People are jumping all over Brad, and he's got to figure out a pre-allocation for XRP because there is a limited supply. You say it's 100 billion. It's still limited. I mean, they're going to be moving more than, at the time XRP was a few cents. That's not going to move a ton of money, is it?
Now, that part that he's talking is actually true, right? They do need to know the daily figure of how much banks move per day. They do need to know that, right? And it's not just because they need to know how much XRP to allocate for them. Those numbers are going to be the ground floor to understanding how much one XRP needs to be in order to move the amount of money in total that all of the banks are going to tell them that they're moving, right? But for some reason, I don't think that too much people understand that because of the prices that they claim XRP needs to be. The prices that they claim XRP needs to be is too low. It's way too low. And if you understood the amount of money that these banks move per day, and you start to look at the XRP supply, and you start to understand that XRP needs to be held by all of these companies in order to even interact with the ledger, that's one key factor. So, in order for these banks to build their banking systems on the blockchain, on the XRP blockchain, they would need to hold XRP so that they can interact with the XRP blockchain slash ledger. Okay? I hope that that made sense. Let's continue listening.
If XRP was $1 each, they could move $100 billion, right? Well, it's only pennies at the time. So they're going to need to pre-allocate because they're going to fish out of a different pool, not out of a pool of 100 billion. They're going to fish out of a pool of, at the time, approximately 50 billion because the rest was in escrow. So think of it now. How many things have...
The future runs on AI, but only if trust powers the engine.
Are bidding for that same amount of things have are bidding for that same amount of coin. So right now there's about 39 billion in escrow. Most of it's locked up. And you have, I believe it's around, let's say 29 billion available in the marketplace on exchanges. I believe it's much less than that, but let's use that as a figure. And you can look at our older videos to get the exact figures or closer to exact figures. Okay, so for the sake of talking about, let's say there's 29 billion.
Okay, I had to stop it here. He says something that is kind of contradicting the other things that he has said before. If XRP is $1, they could only move $100 billion. That is actually true. That is actually really true. So my whole thing is knowing that if XRP is going to move, let's say $1 trillion a day, why would you think that it could only be whatever that will be if you take 100 billion and you divide it by, if you take 100 billion and divide it by 1 trillion? Why would you only think that XRP needs to just be that price? So let's say $10, right? Because I believe that's how much it is. It would be 10, it would be 10 because 100 billion goes into 1 trillion 10 times. So $10, but we're moving that 1 trillion every day, 365 days a year. How in the world could the coin be only $10? The fact of the matter that a lot of these people on YouTube say they say things that contradict something else they said before is insane. Let's continue listening.
Well, what's going to happen when ETFs come out? Those have to have the underlying asset. Well, that pool just got smaller by millions and millions of XRP. What about all the people buying wallets and people that are now buying and holding XRP? That wasn't the intent originally. That's smaller and smaller. What about the tokenization of real world assets? When XRP, if you remember, when XRP came out and was tokenizing, they would transfer XRP over to XRPL. Do you remember that? You remember they said, now it can never come back once it leaves. So there were people tokenizing things, removing XRP over to the XRPL network, tokenizing things. Now that might not be going on as much now because I believe they're going to probably tokenize on XRPL with other tokens they could create. But XRP is still available to tokenize real world assets, to tokenize properties, and to tokenize treasury bills. So everything that takes from the pool shrinks the available supply for banks and institutions. Now goes back to the pre-allocation. They're going to have to figure what the price of XRP is and how much over 1,700 banks and institutions are going to need divided by a daily basis.
Okay, so he's talking about the pool of XRP that has to be used to move whatever sum of money for the banks. They're not worried about that. The banks are not worried about that. XRP is not worried about that either. And XRP is not worried about who's holding the coin. And no, it is not something that we were not meant to hold. That is not true. Because again, if we were not meant to hold XRP, Ripple will not have been still selling this thing today. Exchanges would have had to get rid of the XRP so that no one could buy it. We would not have been able to purchase XRP at any time if we were not supposed to hold it. Everyone is getting the whole term of retail confused with people like you who are purchasing XRP and you're not a bank or you're not some type of financial institution. That is not what retail stands for when it comes to XRP. Retail stands for retail purchases, retail money moving. XRP is going to be money for the banks, where XLM is going to be cash money for regular folks. Again, right now, banks move money, people spend cash for retail use. That's purchasing goods and services. Okay? That's not what XRP is meant for. They're meant to move large bulk sums of money. That's what they're meant to be used for. They're not meant to be used for like a Visa payment. Like if you go to the store and you use your debit card, they're moving that money. No, that's what XLM is for. That's what SHX is for, not XRP. XRP is going to move the bulk sums of the money at a particular time of the day, or maybe particular times in the day, multiple times in the day, right? That's what XRP is designed for. It's not designed for every second payments. No. Every minute payments. No. Every hour payments. No. Okay? Where XLM will be moving, for example, if someone goes to buy fuel for their vehicle, right? You go to the gas station, you're purchasing fuel for your car. XLM is going to move that type of money. At a particular time of the day, XRP is going to move all of the money that moved in the previous, let's say, 6 hours. So if in 6 hours, and I hope you're understanding me and following me, if in 6 hours, let's say through the system, let's say $600 billion moved in 6 hours, right? Just for an example. If $600 billion moved off of the smaller platforms, right? It's going to all get dumped onto XRP, and then XRP is going to distribute it to wherever it needs to go. That's what is going on. That's why the system is interoperable, right? There's a lot of people out here that also thinks that certain coins is going to be more powerful than XRP. No. All of these coins have to talk to XRP because XRP is the only coin that can move a large bulk sum of money. Everyone else could only move smaller amounts that totals up to a bigger amount in an hour, where XRP could move all of it in 1 second or whatever you want to call it. That's how that works. Let's get back to the video.